Forget everything you know about electric cars. Toyota has just unveiled a secret engine that doesn't need batteries, charges in minutes, and could make the entire EV industry obsolete overnight. This is the story of their solid-state hydrogen engine. The electric car. It arrived as a promise, a sleek, silent savior for a planet choking on its own fumes. For over a decade, we've watched it evolve from a niche curiosity into a dominant force, a symbol of progress championed by visionaries and embraced by millions. Companies like Tesla became titans, their valuations soaring past legacy automakers who were left scrambling to catch up. Governments poured billions into subsidies and charging infrastructure, convinced that the battery was the only way forward. The hum of the electric motor became the soundtrack of the future, a future that was clean, quiet, and inevitable. We were told this was it, the final chapter in the century-long story of the internal combustion engine. The end of oil, the end of emissions, the dawn of a new age. And for a while, it seemed true. The acceleration was intoxicating, the convenience of home charging was a revelation, and the feeling of driving a piece of the future was undeniable. But as the revolution spread from the early adopters in wealthy coastal cities to the mainstream masses, the cracks in the utopian facade began to show. The promise, it turned out, came with fine print. The first sign of trouble was range anxiety, a feeling every EV owner knows intimately. The cold dread of watching your battery percentage plummet in winter, the meticulous planning required for a simple road trip, the constant search for a functioning, unoccupied fast charger. We traded gas stations on every corner for a scattered, often unreliable network of charging points, turning a 5-minute fill-up into a 45-minute wait. Then came the questions about the batteries themselves. These marvels of engineering, the very heart of the electric dream, harbored a dark secret. Their creation requires a global supply chain that is anything but clean. We learned about the environmental devastation of lithium mining in South America, the harrowing conditions of cobalt extraction in the Congo, and the immense carbon footprint of battery manufacturing itself. Suddenly, the clean car didn't seem so clean anymore. Its environmental benefits were real, but they were pushed downstream, hidden in far-off lands, out of sight and out of mind for the average consumer. And the problems didn't stop there. The charging infrastructure, even in the most developed nations, is struggling to keep up. The dream of a seamless charging experience often collides with the reality of broken chargers, confusing payment systems, and apartment dwellers with no way to charge at home. The electrical grid itself, an aging behemoth from another era, groans under the strain of millions of vehicles plugging in at once. Power companies are warning of the need for colossal investments to prevent blackouts, investments that will ultimately be paid for by consumers. The batteries, we were told, would last forever, but they degrade, slowly losing their capacity over time, until a car with a 300-mile range can barely manage 200. The cost of replacing one of these massive battery packs? It can be so high that it effectively writes off the entire vehicle. All of these issues, the charging delays, the range anxiety, the ethical and environmental cost of batteries, the strain on our infrastructure, the specter of degradation, they are not minor inconveniences. They are the fundamental Achilles heel of the battery electric vehicle. They are the built-in compromises of a technology that we were told had none. And for years, the industry's only answer was more. More range, bigger batteries, faster chargers. A brute force approach that only exacerbates the underlying problems of resource extraction and weight. But what if there was another way? What if the entire industry made a colossal bet on the wrong technology? What if, while the world was obsessing over lithium-ion, one company, a quiet giant of the automotive world, was secretly perfecting an alternative? A technology that offers all the benefits of electric drive with none of the compromises. A technology that refuels in minutes, not hours. A technology whose only emission is water. And a technology that doesn't rely on a planet-destroying scramble for rare and precious minerals. This is not science fiction. This is the story of a contrarian bet, a decades-long quest that has led to a breakthrough poised to shatter the foundations of the modern auto industry. This is the story of the Toyota solid-state hydrogen engine. To understand the magnitude of what Toyota has achieved, we must first understand their journey. It's a story of corporate defiance, of sticking to a conviction while the rest of the world, investors, media, and competitors, called them fools. While Silicon Valley was pouring billions into battery gigafactories and celebrating the rise of the BEV, Toyota was quietly, stubbornly placing its chips on a different element, hydrogen, the lightest, most abundant element in the universe. For Toyota, the hydrogen dream wasn't a recent pivot. It's a core part of their DNA, a belief they have held for over 30 years. Their journey began back in the early 1990s, long before the first Tesla Roadster was even a sketch in a notebook. Toyota's engineers, looking at the long-term energy landscape, saw the inherent limitations of batteries. They understood that storing energy in chemical bonds, as nature does, is vastly more efficient than storing it in electrostatic fields. They saw hydrogen not just as a fuel, but as a perfect energy carrier. It could be created from a variety of sources, including water and renewable energy. It could be stored for long periods without losing its charge, and it could be converted back into electricity with zero emissions. This fundamental belief set them on a different path. While other automakers dabbled in hydrogen projects and then abandoned them for the more immediate gratification of BEVs, Toyota doubled down. They invested billions of dollars and millions of man-hours into research and development, building a fortress of patents around hydrogen technology. Their first major statement to the world was the Toyota Mirai. Launched in 2014, the Mirai, Japanese for future, was a landmark achievement. It was a mass-produced hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, a car that generated its own electricity on board by combining hydrogen with oxygen. It was a technological marvel. It offered a range of over 300 miles, refueled in just 5 minutes, and emitted only water vapor. On paper, it was the perfect electric car. But the world wasn't ready. The Mirai was met with a chorus of criticism. Elon Musk famously called them fool cells, a clever but ultimately dismissive jab that stuck. Critics pointed to the glaring lack of hydrogen refueling infrastructure. They highlighted the high cost of the vehicle and the energy-intensive process of producing hydrogen at the time. The Mirai, despite its brilliance, was a commercial failure outside of a few select markets like California and Japan. It became a symbol of Toyota's folly, proof that they had missed the boat, that they were a legacy giant clinging to a dead-end technology while nimble startups ran circles around them. Their stock price stagnated while Tesla's went stratospheric. Analysts openly questioned the leadership of Akio Toyoda, the company's CEO and grandson of its founder, for his refusal to abandon hydrogen and go all in on BEVs. But what the critics failed to see was that Toyota was playing a different game. They weren't playing for next quarter's stock price. They were playing for the next century of mobility. Akio Toyoda himself was vocal about his skepticism of a battery-only future. He spoke of the need for a diverse portfolio of solutions, arguing that different regions and different use cases required different technologies. He pointed to the millions of customers who didn't have the luxury of a private garage for overnight charging, the heavy-duty trucking industry that couldn't afford the weight and charging time of massive batteries, and the energy grids that couldn't support a 100% BEV fleet. Behind the scenes, away from the public mockery, Toyota's labs were buzzing with activity. They understood the Mirai's shortcomings. The high-pressure hydrogen tanks, while proven to be incredibly safe through rigorous testing, were bulky and difficult to package. The platinum used in the fuel cell catalysts was expensive, and the reliance on a sparse network of high-pressure refueling stations was a major bottleneck. They knew they needed a breakthrough, not just an incremental improvement, but a fundamental paradigm shift in how hydrogen was stored and used. They explored two radical paths simultaneously. The first was the hydrogen combustion engine. This was a direct shot across the bow of the BEV purists. Toyota's engineers, masters of the internal combustion engine, began modifying their existing engine designs to run on pure hydrogen. The result was a vehicle that kept the visceral sound and feel of a traditional car but produced nearly zero harmful emissions. They even began racing these prototypes, proving their durability and performance under the most extreme conditions. This project was a testament to their belief in offering customers a choice, and it preserved decades of manufacturing expertise.
But it was their second path that was the real game changer, the Holy Grail, the one that would address the core challenges of hydrogen storage head-on. The project was to eliminate the need for high-pressure gas tanks altogether, to find a way to store hydrogen in a dense, safe, low-pressure form, to create a solid-state hydrogen storage system. This research was far more challenging, pushing the boundaries of material science. It involved investigating complex metal hydrides, advanced adsorbents, and chemical compounds that could absorb and release hydrogen atoms like a sponge. For years, this work remained deep in the background. But as the world's EV-related problems mounted, Toyota's secret weapon was getting closer to reality. They knew that if they could crack the code of solid-state hydrogen storage, they wouldn't just have a better version of the Mirai. They would have the ultimate EV killer, a technology that combines the zero-emissions benefit of a BEV with the convenience and practicality of a gasoline car. The mockery would stop. The doubters would be silenced, and the stubborn 30-year bet on hydrogen would finally pay off, reshaping the entire automotive world in Toyota's image. So what exactly is this groundbreaking technology?
To truly grasp why the Toyota solid-state hydrogen engine is such a monumental leap, we need to break down the science. It's a journey from the fundamental properties of hydrogen to the cutting-edge material science that makes it all possible. Let's start with the problem, hydrogen itself. As the lightest element, hydrogen gas has a very low density. To store enough of it on a vehicle to provide a useful range, you have to do one of two things: either compress it to incredibly high pressures or cryogenically cool it into a liquid. The Toyota Mirai and other fuel cell vehicles like it use the first method. They store hydrogen gas in carbon fiber-wrapped tanks at a pressure of 10,000 pounds per square inch, or 700 bar. To put that in perspective, that's about 300 times the pressure in a typical car tire. While these tanks are incredibly strong and have passed every conceivable safety test, they are inherently expensive, cylindrical, which makes them hard to package into a car's design, and they contribute to the public's perception of hydrogen as being dangerous. The new system throws that entire concept out the window. The core innovation is not the engine or the fuel cell itself, but the fuel tank. Toyota has developed a method for storing hydrogen in a solid material at low pressure. This is the solid-state part of the name, and it changes everything. Imagine a sponge. You can soak a sponge with a large amount of water, and the water is held securely within the sponge's structure. Toyota's solid-state storage medium works on a similar principle, but at a molecular level. Instead of a sponge, they use a specially engineered material, often a metal hydride powder or a complex alloy. This material has a unique crystalline structure with microscopic spaces that are perfect for trapping hydrogen atoms. When you charge the tank, you introduce low-pressure hydrogen gas. The gas molecules break apart, and the individual hydrogen atoms bond with the metal alloy, effectively becoming part of the solid material. The hydrogen is no longer a high-pressure gas. It's chemically locked away in a dense, stable, solid form. The amount of hydrogen that can be stored in this way is staggering. The energy density of these materials, both by weight, gravimetric density, and by volume, volumetric density, can far exceed what's possible with compressed gas tanks. This means you can store more fuel in a smaller, lighter, and more conformable space. The tanks no longer need to be cylindrical. They can be molded to fit into the nooks and crannies of a vehicle's chassis, just like a traditional gasoline tank. This liberates car designers and improves vehicle dynamics.
The process of creating these materials is a closely guarded secret, a result of decades of research in material science. It involves a process called nanostructuring. Scientists engineer the metal hydride material at the nanoscale to optimize its properties. They might create alloys of magnesium, titanium, and other elements, then use techniques like ball milling to create a fine powder with a massive surface area. This increases the speed at which the material can absorb and release hydrogen, which is critical for fast refueling and for providing enough fuel flow to power the vehicle. Releasing the hydrogen is a matter of simple thermodynamics. To get the hydrogen out, you just need to gently heat the storage tank. A small amount of waste heat from the engine or fuel cell is typically sufficient. As the material warms up, the chemical bonds holding the hydrogen atoms weaken, and they are released as a pure, low-pressure gas ready to be used. This process is precisely controllable, allowing for a steady and reliable fuel supply to the powertrain. The most profound advantage of this system is safety. Because the hydrogen is chemically bonded to the solid material, it is incredibly stable. Even if the tank were to be punctured in a severe accident, there would be no explosive release of high-pressure gas. The hydrogen would simply and slowly leak out as it desorbs from the damaged material. This inherent safety feature completely neutralizes the single biggest public relations hurdle that hydrogen has always faced. But how is this hydrogen used? Here, Toyota's strategy of developing multiple technologies pays off. The solid-state storage tank can be paired with two different types of powertrains. The first is an advanced fuel cell stack, an evolution of the one found in the Mirai. In this setup, the low-pressure hydrogen from the tank is fed into the fuel cell. Inside the fuel cell, it passes through a membrane where it combines with oxygen from the air. This electrochemical reaction produces two things: electricity to power the car's electric motors, and pure water vapor as the only byproduct. It's a silent, smooth, and highly efficient process. This is the hydrogen electric vehicle. The second, and perhaps more disruptive option, is to pair the solid-state tank with Toyota's hydrogen-burning internal combustion engine. In this configuration, the hydrogen gas is injected directly into the engine cylinders, where it is mixed with air and ignited by a spark plug, just like gasoline. The expanding gas pushes pistons, turns a crankshaft, and drives the wheels. It's a familiar process, but with a critical difference. The fuel is hydrogen. The combustion of hydrogen and oxygen produces primarily water.
While there can be trace amounts of nitrogen oxides, NOx, formed from the nitrogen in the air at high temperatures, Toyota has developed advanced lean burn techniques and exhaust aftertreatment systems that reduce these emissions to near zero levels. This powertrain offers a completely different experience. It retains the sound, the feel, and the mechanical soul of a performance car that many enthusiasts crave, all while being a zero-carbon solution. It also allows Toyota to leverage its existing world-class manufacturing infrastructure for engines and transmissions, dramatically reducing the cost and complexity away from fossil fuels. This dual-path approach is brilliant. It allows Toyota to offer customers a choice: the silent, seamless efficiency of a fuel cell electric vehicle, or the engaging, auditory experience of a hydrogen combustion vehicle. Both are powered by the same revolutionary, safe, and compact solid-state hydrogen storage system. This is not just a new type of engine, it's a complete, flexible platform that solves the core problems of both battery electric and previous-generation hydrogen vehicles. It's the culmination of a 30-year vision, a masterpiece of engineering and material science that fundamentally rewrites the rules of the game. With the technology understood, the ultimate question arises: how does this new system stack up against the reigning champion, the battery electric vehicle? This is the ultimate showdown, a clash of two fundamentally different philosophies for the future of transportation. We'll compare them across the key metrics that matter most to consumers, to the industry, and to the planet. Let the battle begin. Round 1: Refueling versus recharging. This is perhaps the most decisive victory for hydrogen. The solid-state hydrogen system is designed to be refueled in approximately 3 to 5 minutes. The process is almost identical to filling up a gasoline car. You pull up to a station, connect a nozzle, and the low-pressure hydrogen is absorbed by the solid-state material. It's a simple, familiar, and incredibly fast process. A 5-minute stop can add 400, 500, or even more miles of range. Now compare that to a BEV. While Level 3 DC fast chargers are getting quicker, they still require at best 20 to 40 minutes to add a significant amount of range. And that's under ideal conditions, with a preconditioned battery and a high-powered charger that isn't being shared. For most people, charging at home on a Level 2 charger, a full charge takes 8 to 12 hours. This fundamental difference in energy transfer time has massive implications for convenience and infrastructure. A single hydrogen pump can service hundreds of cars a day, just like a gas pump. A single fast-charging stall can only service a few dozen. For people living in apartments, or those who need to make long-distance trips frequently, or for commercial fleets that can't afford hours of downtime, the hydrogen advantage is monumental. Winner?
solid-state hydrogen by a landslide. Round 2, range and performance in all conditions. Modern BEVs offer impressive range figures, often exceeding 300 miles. High-end models can push 400 miles. However, this range is highly susceptible to external factors. In cold weather, battery performance can plummet by as much as 30–40% due to the need for cabin heating and the slower chemical reactions within the battery. Towing a trailer can cut a BEV's range in half. High-speed highway driving also drains the battery much faster than the EPA's gentle test cycles would suggest. Hydrogen vehicles are far more resilient. Whether it's a fuel cell or a combustion engine, the powertrain's efficiency is much less affected by cold temperatures. The energy required to heat the cabin is a much smaller fraction of the total energy stored in the tank. This means a hydrogen car with a 400-mile range will deliver close to 400 miles, whether it's summer in Arizona or winter in Norway. For performance, both technologies are capable of delivering thrilling acceleration, thanks to the instant torque of electric motors. Fuel cell vehicles are essentially BEVs with an onboard power plant, while Toyota's hydrogen combustion engines are being tuned to deliver a sporty, high-revving character. The key difference is consistency. A BEV's peak performance can be limited by the battery's state of charge and temperature. A hydrogen vehicle can deliver its full performance until the tank is empty. Winner, solid-state hydrogen for its consistency and all-weather reliability. Round 3, environmental impact and life cycle analysis. This is a complex and contentious issue. BEVs are marketed as zero emission, which is true at the tailpipe, but it ignores the massive carbon footprint of battery production. Mining lithium, cobalt, and nickel is an energy-intensive and environmentally damaging process. Manufacturing the battery pack is the single largest source of CO2 emissions in a BEV's entire life cycle. The electricity used to charge the car also has to come from somewhere, and in many parts of the world, that means burning fossil fuels. The green credentials of a BEV are heavily dependent on how its battery was made and how the electricity it uses is generated. Hydrogen's environmental case also depends on its production method. Today, most hydrogen is produced from natural gas, a process known as gray hydrogen, which releases CO2. However, the future is green hydrogen, produced through electrolysis, using renewable energy like solar and wind to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. This process is completely carbon-free. A vehicle running on green hydrogen is a true zero-emission solution from well to wheel. The key advantage for hydrogen is the vehicle itself. A hydrogen car, especially one using a combustion engine, requires far fewer exotic materials than a BEV. There is no giant 800-pound battery pack. This dramatically reduces the environmental impact of manufacturing the vehicle. Furthermore, hydrogen fuel cells can be recycled more easily than lithium-ion batteries, and the core materials in a solid-state hydrogen tank are more abundant and less problematic than cobalt. As the world's grids get greener and green hydrogen production scales up, the life cycle advantage will shift decisively in hydrogen's favor. It removes the bottleneck of battery mineral supply and creates a more sustainable closed-loop energy cycle. Winner, a narrow win for solid-state hydrogen with its long-term potential for a cleaner life cycle. Round 4, cost and infrastructure. This is where BEVs currently have the edge. Years of investment and manufacturing scale have driven down the cost of batteries, making BEVs more affordable. The charging infrastructure, while imperfect, is vastly more built out than the handful of hydrogen stations that exist today. Toyota's new technology aims to tackle this head-on. By eliminating expensive materials like platinum in the fuel cell and avoiding the massive cost of a battery pack, they can significantly reduce the manufacturing cost of the vehicle. The solid-state hydrogen combustion engine, in particular, could be cheaper to produce than a comparable BEV powertrain because it leverages existing manufacturing techniques. The bigger challenge is the refueling infrastructure. Building a network of hydrogen stations is a massive undertaking. However, it's not as daunting as it seems. Because a single hydrogen pump can serve so many cars, you need far fewer hydrogen stations than you need charging points. Strategic placement of stations along major highways and in urban centers could create a viable network much faster and cheaper than upgrading the entire electrical grid to support a 100% BEV fleet. The cost of green hydrogen is also expected to fall dramatically as electrolysis technology improves and renewable energy becomes cheaper. While BEVs have a significant head start today, the long-term cost trajectory for hydrogen technology, both for the vehicles and the fuel, is very promising. Winner: battery electric vehicle, for now, but the gap is closing fast.
The verdict of the battle. While BEVs have a current advantage in upfront cost and infrastructure availability, the Toyota solid-state hydrogen system wins in nearly every other key metric: convenience, all-weather performance, long-term environmental sustainability, and raw material dependency. It solves the most significant pain points that are currently holding back EV adoption for the mainstream. It's a more versatile, more robust, and ultimately a more practical solution for a wider range of drivers and applications. The implications of this technological shift extend far beyond the dealership showroom. If Toyota's solid-state hydrogen engine is successfully mass-produced, it will trigger a geopolitical and economic shockwave that will reshape entire industries and realign global power dynamics. For decades, the global economy has been held hostage by the geography of oil. Nations with vast petroleum reserves have wielded immense political and economic power. The BEV revolution was supposed to change that, but it simply traded one set of dependencies for another. The new energy kingmakers became the countries that control the mining and processing of lithium, cobalt, nickel, and other rare earth minerals. China, through strategic investments over the last 20 years, has achieved a near monopoly on the processing of these critical materials, giving it a powerful lever over the global auto industry. The entire BEV supply chain is precariously dependent on a handful of nations, many of which are politically unstable. Solid-state hydrogen shatters this paradigm. The two primary ingredients needed for a green hydrogen economy are water and renewable energy. This democratizes energy production. Any country with ample sunlight, wind, or coastline can become an energy superpower. Nations like Australia, with its vast deserts perfect for solar farms, or Chile, with its powerful coastal winds, could become massive exporters of green hydrogen. This decentralizes the energy map, breaking the grip of both OPEC and the Chinese-dominated battery supply chain. It creates a more stable, resilient, and equitable global energy market. For the automotive industry, the disruption would be seismic. Companies that have gone all in on a battery-only future, investing hundreds of billions of dollars in battery gigafactories and BEV-specific platforms, would face a terrifying dilemma. Their massive investments could become obsolete. They would be forced into a costly and frantic pivot to catch up with Toyota, who would have a 30-year head start and a mountain of patents. Think of the corporate showdown. Tesla, the company that defined the BEV era, would find its entire technological foundation challenged. Its competitive advantages, battery technology and the supercharger network, would be directly countered by a technology that requires neither. It would be a clash of titans, a battle between two different visions of the future, with trillions of dollars in market capitalization at stake. Legacy automakers who followed Tesla down the BEV path would be in an even more precarious position, caught between their old internal combustion business and their new, but potentially obsolete, battery investments. Toyota, once derided as a laggard, would emerge as the ultimate visionary, the company that played the long game and won. The economic impact would ripple through every sector. The mining industry would see a collapse in demand for lithium and cobalt, while demand for the materials used in electrolyzers and hydrogen storage would soar. The utility sector would face a different future, shifting from supplying massive amounts of charging electricity to supporting a network of hydrogen production facilities. The shipping, aviation, and heavy trucking industries, for whom batteries were never a viable solution due to weight and energy density limitations, would finally have a clear path to decarbonization, adopting hydrogen technology on a massive scale. This isn't just a new car, it's the key to unlocking the full potential of the hydrogen economy.
It creates the mass market demand needed to drive down the cost of green hydrogen production, which in turn makes it viable for heavy industry, power generation, and home energy storage. The car becomes the catalyst for a complete transformation of our energy infrastructure. The world would shift from a system based on extracting and burning finite resources to one based on utilizing the most abundant element in the universe, powered by renewable sources. The economic and environmental benefits would be immense, but the transition would be turbulent. It represents a fundamental reordering of the industrial world, and the companies and countries that embrace it will lead the 21st century, while those who cling to yesterday's technology will be left behind. We began with a simple question: is Toyota's new solid-state hydrogen engine the ultimate EV killer? After journeying through the science, the history, and the global implications, the answer is a resounding and definitive yes. It has the potential to be exactly that. This technology is not just an alternative to the battery electric vehicle, it is a superior solution in almost every practical way. It addresses the fundamental flaws of BEVs without compromise. It eliminates range anxiety. It eradicates long charging times. It breaks our dependence on a fragile and ethically compromised battery supply chain. We began with a simple question: is Toyota's new solid-state hydrogen engine the ultimate EV killer? After journeying through the science, the history, and the global implications, the answer is a resounding and definitive yes. It has the potential to be exactly that. This technology is not just an alternative to the battery electric vehicle, it is a superior solution in almost every practical way. It addresses the fundamental flaws of BEVs without compromise. It eliminates range anxiety. It eradicates long charging times. It breaks our dependence on a fragile and ethically compromised battery supply chain.
It offers a path to a truly sustainable, zero-emission transportation system, from manufacturing to disposal. It does all of this while providing a choice of powertrain experiences, from the silent glide of a fuel cell to the engaging roar of a combustion engine. Of course, the path forward is not without challenges. The primary hurdle is infrastructure. Building out a hydrogen refueling network is a monumental task that will require immense investment and political will. The cost of green hydrogen, while falling, is not yet competitive with gasoline or electricity. And there will be fierce resistance from the established players in the battery and utility industries who have invested trillions in the status quo. These are significant obstacles, but they are not insurmountable. They are engineering and economic challenges, not fundamental limitations of physics and chemistry like those that plague batteries. The convenience, resilience, and strategic advantages of a hydrogen-based system are so compelling that the investment will be made. The transition will happen. Toyota's stubborn, 3-decade-long bet on hydrogen, once seen as a foolish distraction, now looks like a masterstroke of long-term strategic thinking. They endured the criticism, ignored the hype, and focused on solving the hard problems. They played the long game, and they have emerged with a technology that doesn't just compete with the battery electric vehicle, it has the potential to make it obsolete. The era of the battery may not be over tomorrow, but its days as the undisputed future of mobility are numbered. We are on the cusp of a new automotive revolution, not just a switch from gas to electric, but a fundamental shift in how we store and use energy. It's a future powered by the simplest, most abundant element in the universe, a future made possible by the quiet, relentless innovation of a company that dared to choose a different path. So, what do you think? Is Toyota's solid-state hydrogen engine the real future, or is it the biggest gamble in automotive history? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.